In the vast expanse of the Galactic Conference Chamber, Ambassador J. Park stood alone, representing humanity before the most powerful civilizations in the known universe. The room was a marvel of alien architecture, with walls that seemed to shimmer and change color like living crystals. Delegates from hundreds of advanced species watched her with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. The Galactic Council had been meeting for centuries, long before humans had even dreamed of space travel. Representatives from star systems thousands of light-years apart sat in a circular arrangement, each delegation occupying a platform that floated weightlessly above the central floor. Jay was acutely aware of how different she looked compared to the other delegates. Her dark blue diplomatic suit seemed almost primitive next to the elaborate biotechnological garments of the alien representatives. Some delegates appeared as pure energy, others as intricate mechanical constructs, and a few as beings that defied human understanding of life itself. The chief arbiter, a massive crystalline entity from the Vorx system, raised what could only be described as a translucent appendage. Its voice resonated through the chamber, not as sound but as a direct communication that bypassed normal auditory channels. Humanity's application for galactic membership is denied, the arbiter announced. The words hit Jay like a physical force, but she refused to show any weakness. The reasons were familiar to her. Humans were considered too young, too violent, too unpredictable. Their history of wars, environmental destruction, and rapid technological development made the older civilizations nervous. They saw humans as children playing with dangerous tools, potentially threatening the delicate balance of galactic politics. One by one, representatives spoke against humanity's application. The crystalline beings from Vorx cited human tendency for conflict. The energy-based Lumina pointed out humanity's destructive impact on their own planet. The mechanical construct collective highlighted the inefficiency of human social structures. Jay listened carefully, her training as a diplomat preventing her from showing any emotional response. She knew this moment was about more than just her. This was about the hopes and dreams of billions of humans who looked to the stars with wonder and ambition. The chamber was massive, easily capable of holding thousands of beings. Holographic displays showed historical records of human actions, wars, environmental challenges, technological breakthroughs. But they were presented in a way that made humanity look like a dangerous, unpredictable species. When the final vote came, it was unanimous. Humanity was rejected. As Jay prepared to leave, she caught the eye of a junior delegate from a smaller star system. For a brief moment, she saw something different. A flicker of respect, perhaps even admiration. Not all beings in the galaxy saw humans as a threat. Some saw potential. The journey back to Earth would be long. Her report would be difficult to write. But Jay knew something the Galactic Council did not understand. Humans were adaptable. Humans were resilient. And most importantly, humans did not give up easily. As she stepped onto her transport, a message from Earth's Global Council was waiting. It was short, but carried the spirit of an entire planet. They said no. We say, watch us. The small spacecraft detached from the massive Galactic station, carrying with it the first seeds of humanity's response. The stars outside seemed to shimmer with possibility, waiting for what would come next. Jay Park allowed herself a small smile. The game was just beginning, and humanity was about to show the galaxy exactly what they were made of. In the cold silence of space, her ship disappeared, carrying with it the hopes of an entire planet that refused to be told what it could or could not do. The Galactic Council had made a decision, but decisions, as humans knew best, could always be challenged. The news of the Galactic Council's rejection spread across Earth like wildfire. In conference rooms, research centers, and military installations, people watched the broadcast with a mix of anger and determination. This was not a moment of defeat, but a call to action. Dr. Hyun Kim sat in his laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays and advanced computer systems. He was not a typical scientist. He was a visionary who understood that humanity's survival depended on innovation. The rejection was a challenge, and he was ready to answer. Within days, a unique collaboration began. Nations that had been rivals for centuries suddenly found themselves working together. The United States, China, Russia, India, and countries from every continent pooled their resources. This was no longer about national pride, but about human survival. Research facilities that once competed now shared information instantly. Quantum computing centers in Tokyo worked alongside artificial intelligence labs in Berlin. Space research centers in Brazil communicated with engineering teams in South Africa. The global network of human intelligence began to pulse with unprecedented energy. General Siok Lee from the United Earth Defense Command understood the strategic requirements. Humanity needed more than just scientific breakthroughs. They needed a comprehensive plan that could protect their planet and prove their worth to the galactic community. Military technology transformed overnight. Prototype ships that had been in development for decades were now fast-tracked. Naval engineers worked around the clock, creating vessels that could potentially challenge alien technology. Adaptive materials that could change properties instantly were developed in record time. In universities and research centers, young scientists became the new heroes. They weren't just studying theories. They were creating solutions that could change humanity's future. Funding was no longer an issue. Every government and private organization understood the stakes. Artificial intelligence systems were refined to work seamlessly with human operators. Machine learning algorithms that could predict complex galactic interactions were developed. These were not just computer programs, but potential game changers in understanding interstellar dynamics. The global communication networks began to change. Satellites were upgraded. Communication protocols were redesigned. Humanity was preparing not just for potential conflict, but for a new era of potential interaction with other civilizations. Biological research took unexpected turns. Scientists began developing enhanced human capabilities, not through genetic modification, but through advanced training and technological integration. Soldiers were trained to operate in environments that would challenge human physiology. Space exploration programs that had been slowly developing were suddenly given unlimited resources. Missions that were once considered impossible were now seen as necessary. Lunar and Martian bases were expanded, serving as potential forward operating bases for future galactic interactions. Every major city on Earth began to look different. Infrastructure was modified. Public spaces were redesigned with potential defense scenarios in mind. It wasn't about creating a militaristic society, but about being prepared for any potential challenge. The psychological impact was profound. People who might have felt small and insignificant now felt part of a global mission. School curriculums were updated to focus on space technologies, alien communication theories, and advanced scientific thinking. Dr. Kim's team developed a breakthrough quantum communication system that could potentially send messages across vast distances in milliseconds. It wasn't just a technological achievement, it was a statement. Humanity would not be ignored. General Lee's military strategists developed simulation scenarios that could predict potential galactic conflict strategies. These were not just war games, but complex mathematical models that considered technological, cultural, and psychological factors. As weeks passed, the transformation became evident. Humanity was no longer a collection of separate nations, but a unified species with a singular goal. The Galactic Council's rejection had done something unexpected. It had made humans stronger, more focused, and infinitely more dangerous. The message was clear. Humanity would not just survive. They would thrive. And the galaxy would soon understand that rejecting humans was the biggest mistake they could make. In research centers, military bases, and universities around the world, a new chapter of human history was being written. The stars were no longer just a distant dream. They were a destination, and humanity was coming, ready or not. The laboratory hummed with an electric energy that was almost alive. Yoon Choi stood before a massive holographic display, her fingers dancing across quantum interface nodes that seemed to respond to her thoughts more than her touch. Around her, the most brilliant minds on Earth worked with a single purpose: to create technologies that would redefine human potential. Quantum entanglement communication was no longer a theoretical concept. Yoon had transformed it into a working system that could transmit information across unimaginable distances instantaneously. What took alien civilizations centuries to develop, humans had accomplished in months. The breakthrough came from an unexpected combination of technologies. Artificial intelligence systems developed by a team in Silicon Valley worked in perfect sync with quantum computing platforms from a research center in Bangalore. Each system learned and adapted faster than anyone thought possible. Dr. Hyun Kim watched the progress with a mixture of pride and anticipation. The biomechanical enhancements they were developing were nothing short of revolutionary. These were not simple augmentations but complete system integrations that could transform human capabilities beyond current understanding. Prototype suits emerged that could adapt to virtually any environment. Soldiers could now operate in extreme temperatures, survive in near-vacuum conditions, and process information at speeds that made previous human limitations seem laughable. These were not just uniforms. They were living, thinking systems that extended human potential. The first test subjects were volunteers who understood the magnitude of what they represented. Military personnel, scientists, and explorers who saw themselves as representatives of an entire species. Each enhancement was carefully monitored, each adaptation meticulously recorded. Stealth technology reached new heights. Ships could now bend light around themselves, becoming essentially invisible to traditional detection methods. Propulsion systems developed quantum corridor technology that could move vessels faster than light, without the traditional energy requirements that would have been impossible just years before. Communication networks transformed. Satellites that once took months to transmit data now shared information across continents in milliseconds. The entire planet became a single, interconnected system, more complex and responsive than any alien civilization had imagined possible. Advanced AI systems began predicting potential galactic interaction scenarios. These were not simple mathematical models, but complex predictive platforms that could understand potential alien psychology, technological capabilities, and strategic thinking. Manufacturing changed overnight. Factories that once took months to produce complex machinery could now create entire spacecraft components in hours. 3D printing technology merged with quantum assembly techniques, allowing for levels of precision that seemed almost magical. Energy production became clean and virtually unlimited. Fusion reactors that had been theoretical were now practical realities. Entire cities could be powered by systems no larger than a typical shipping container. The energy crisis that had plagued humanity for centuries disappeared. Space exploration. Teams prepared new mission protocols. They were no longer just exploring. They were preparing to make a statement. Each mission was designed not just to gather information, but to demonstrate human capability and resilience. The global collaboration was unprecedented. Countries that had been enemies now worked as a single unit. National boundaries became meaningless in the face of a greater goal. Humanity was no longer divided, it was united. Young scientists became the new heroes. University research centers transformed into innovation hubs that worked around the clock. Students who might have once dreamed of space exploration were now actively creating the technologies that would make those dreams possible. Yoon Choi's quantum communication system could now do something extraordinary. It could potentially create communication bridges with alien civilizations in ways never before imagined. Not just transmission of data, but true understanding. As the first advanced prototype ships were completed, something shifted in the global consciousness. This was no longer about proving something to the Galactic Council. This was about humanity's inherent potential to grow, adapt, and overcome. The stars, once a distant dream, now seemed like a near-term destination. Humanity had transformed from a planetary species to something else entirely, a civilization on the brink of truly understanding its own potential. And the galaxy would soon learn that rejecting humans was the biggest mistake they could ever make. Commander Tae Park stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon, a stealth vessel that represented humanity's most advanced technological achievement. The ship moved silently through space, its quantum corridor technology making it essentially invisible to traditional tracking systems. The mission was clear: demonstrate humanity's capabilities without total destruction. This was a surgical strike, designed to send a message rather than start a full-scale war. Intelligence gathered from multiple sources had identified key Galactic Council infrastructure points that would be most vulnerable. Around Park, a diverse crew of humans worked with precision. Each team member was enhanced, not just through technology but through rigorous training and adaptive biomechanical systems. They moved like a single organism, anticipating each other's actions before they happened. The first target was a massive communication relay station orbiting a distant neutron star. This wasn't just a communication hub, it was the primary information exchange point for several advanced civilizations. Disrupting it would send a clear message about human capabilities. Quantum, targeting systems locked onto precise points. The ship's adaptive camouflage made it indistinguishable from the background radiation of space. Traditional sensors would simply slide past, unable to detect its presence. As they approached, the crew remained calm. Years of preparation had led to this moment. Each member understood the significance of their mission. This wasn't just a military operation, it was a statement about human potential. The first strike was surgical. Precision energy disruption modules targeted specific system nodes. Within milliseconds, the massive communication relay began to fragment. It wasn't destroyed. It was strategically disabled in a way that would take months to repair. Almost simultaneously, similar operations began across multiple star systems. Human teams had identified vulnerabilities that the Galactic Council had never considered. Each strike was calculated, each movement a chess move in a much larger game. A transmission was prepared, not a threat, but a clear message. "You underestimated us," it would read. "This is just a demonstration of what we can do." The most fascinating aspect was the technology itself. Adaptive AI systems predicted and neutralized potential defensive responses before they could even be initiated. What would have taken traditional military forces months of planning happened in mere moments. Other targets followed. Strategic orbital platforms, communication relays, and administrative centers were precisely targeted. The strikes were not about destruction, but about demonstrating capability. Each location was disabled with minimal collateral damage. Back on Earth, Mission Control watched with a mixture of tension and pride. This was humanity's first real statement to the galactic community. No longer would they be seen as a primitive species to be ignored. Commander Park allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. Generations of human potential had led to this moment. The dreams of countless scientists, the hard work of engineers, the vision of explorers, all converged in these precise strikes. The quantum communication systems ensured that news of the strikes would spread faster than light. Each alien civilization would receive simultaneous information about humanity's new capabilities. The message was clear: humans were not to be underestimated. Defensive systems that had been considered impenetrable crumbled before human technology. Not through brute force, but through intelligent, adaptive strategies that anticipated every possible response. As the USS Horizon completed its mission, something fundamental had changed. Humanity had moved from being a potential threat to being an actual power in the galactic landscape. The Galactic Council's rejection now seemed like a distant, almost laughable memory. The ship moved silently back through its quantum corridor, leaving behind a transformed galactic understanding. Humans were no longer waiting to be accepted. They were defining their own place in the universe. One final transmission was sent. Short, precise, and loaded with meaning. "We are here. We are ready." The stars seemed to pause as if holding their breath. Humanity had just changed everything. The emergency session of the Galactic Council looked nothing like its previous meetings. Where once there had been arrogance, now there was only fear. Delegates from hundreds of advanced civilizations watched holographic displays showing the extent of human capabilities. Ambassador J. Park sat at the center of the chamber, her presence more powerful than any technological display. She represented not just a planet, but a species that had just rewritten the rules of galactic interaction. The Vorx crystalline arbiter, who had once dismissed humanity so casually, now flickered with what could only be described as nervousness. Its translucent form seemed to shrink, losing the imposing presence it had once commanded. Reports flooded in from multiple star systems. Human strikes had been so precise, so calculated, that they defied traditional understanding of warfare. These were not attacks of destruction, but demonstrations of capability. Each disabled system was a message. Humans could do far more but chose restraint. Technological analyses revealed something terrifying to the alien civilizations. Human adaptability was not just a trait, it was a fundamental survival mechanism that exceeded all previous galactic understanding. They had transformed technological limitations into strengths in mere months. The junior delegates, those from smaller star systems, looked at the human representatives with a mixture of respect and wonder. Some saw potential allies, others saw a new power that could reshape galactic dynamics. Diplomatic protocols that had existed for thousands of years suddenly seemed obsolete. Humanity had not just entered the galactic stage, they had rewritten the entire performance. Dr. Hyun Kim's quantum communication technologies were now being studied by every major civilization. What humans had developed in months would have taken other species centuries. The speed of human innovation was itself a weapon more powerful than any traditional military technology. The economic implications were massive. Human adaptive technologies could revolutionize entire industrial systems. Trade negotiations that were once one-sided now became complex, multi-layered discussions where humans held significant leverage. Military strategists from various civilizations reviewed the human strikes. Each attack was a masterclass in strategic thinking. Precise, minimal, but absolutely decisive. They had not just demonstrated technological superiority, but a level of strategic intelligence that was unprecedented. Communication networks across the galaxy buzzed with discussions about humanity. No longer were humans seen as a primitive species. They were now a potential game-changer in galactic politics, economics, and technological development. The Lumina, energy-based civilization, which had once criticized human environmental practices, now studied human clean energy technologies with intense interest. The very systems they had mocked were now potential solutions to their own technological challenges. A new diplomatic summit was called. But this time, it was different. Humans were not applying for membership. They were being courted. The Galactic's Council's previous rejection now seemed like the most significant mistake in galactic diplomatic history. Ambassador Park spoke rarely, but when she did, every delegate listened. Her words were measured, intelligent, carrying the weight of an entire species that had just proven its worth. She didn't need to argue or defend. The technological demonstrations had spoken louder than any speech. The Mechanical Construct Collective, which had once considered humans inefficient, now studied human adaptive AI systems with what could only be described as respect. Human technology had bridged gaps that their own systems had struggled with for millennia. As the summit progressed, it became clear that everything had changed. Humanity was not asking to join the galactic community. They were defining the terms of engagement. The final resolution was unprecedented. Humanity would not be granted membership. They would be recognized as an independent galactic power, no conditions, no limitations. A complete reversal of the previous rejection. Outside the conference chamber, the stars seemed to shimmer with possibility. Humanity had done what no species had done before. They had transformed a complete rejection into a position of ultimate strength. The message was clear. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again.